We're going to get started here. I'm going to ring the bell. I'm going to put that on here. So. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America and
one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is a big, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. Thank you, guys. Mr. Young, can I have you give us an invocation today?
You bet. Father, we thank you for this new beginning, this new year, and a reminder of family and community and your love for us. We invite your presence today, and we thank you for all those in attendance. And again, many blessings on them and our community as we serve it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Dan. Well, thank you guys for being here. It's the first Wednesday of the new year, and we are excited to dive right in. I had a motivational phrase for you guys in honor of Betty White, who passed away earlier this week. She said, on turning 99, I don't know who did the interview, but someone sat her down and said, you know, Betty, what's the secret? She says, it is 100% your outlook on life that counts. If you take yourself lightly and don't take yourself too seriously, pretty soon you can find the humor in the everyday things of everyday life. Sometimes that can be a lifesaver. So I thought that was pretty neat. You know, she turned 99 last year, would have been 100 in less than 2 weeks now. And yeah, so that's a sad passing that took place here. We have a guest speaker today, Paul Andrews. He's with the High Desert ESD. Thank you for being here. You'll have the floor here in a few minutes. Now, we also have another guest back there. Michelle, I might let you introduce our friend.
Hi, gang. Yes, this is my good friend Mariana Prisoner. She and I met when we were both on the Family Access Network board, and she works with On Point Community Credit Union, and also she and her husband have Prisoner Dental downtown, or I guess on Highland, right there on Highland. But I also get to call her my good friend, so I'm so thankful she was here today.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we have a few announcements. Immediately following today's meeting, we do have a quick board meeting about Seas Candy. So if you guys would like to stay on the computer, please do. If you're here in person and would like to stay, please do. We're primarily going to be discussing Seas Candy and what to do with the leftover chocolates. Wanted to give everybody a reminder when it comes to ordering our lunches for Wednesdays, please do so as soon as possible, Monday, Tuesday, if you can. I was late today and she still was able to make it happen, but they'd like our orders before 9 a.m. on if possible, try to do it on Monday or Tuesday. Reminder to get your service hours into Carl. This week we have a couple of anniversaries. We had Noah and Turquoise had their wedding anniversary on New Year's Eve. Mr. John Hodecker and Laurie had their anniversary on the first of the year. And today we have Mr. and Mrs. Duff celebrating their 20th anniversary. Congratulations, guys. Today is also Amber Wilson's birthday. So if you see her out and about, wish her a happy one. I talked about this quickly last week, but I wanted to welcome two new members. We had Haas and Amanda Joe both get approved by the board last board meeting. And so they've not been back to a meeting since, but we look forward to having them involved. The only opportunity for volunteerism I see on my list is the Kiwanis Food Project. The next pickup date is the 29th of January. Any other announcements? Michelle?
Our good friend Angela Boothborg, a friend of Kiwanis, she's looking for volunteers for the Redmond crab crack. And so the tickets are sold out, but if you are able to come, you do get a lasagna dinner for helping. So if you'd like to Karen Sand is the volunteer coordinator. But if you give me your information, I can connect you to Karen.
Awesome. Thank you. Do you know how many volunteers are looking for?
I'm not sure. John, can you speak to that?
A
Volunteers?
lot.
A lot to
Okay.
make it
All right.
happen.
Great. Nope, that's great. Any other online? Okay, doesn't look like it. Do we know who has the free badge? I was thinking it was Alan.
It's Ann.
Ann. She
She
outbid
paid
you?
more money than me.
Okay, well, Ann's not with us. So let's move into 50/50.
Sir, would you mind, hold on a second. Absolutely. Absolutely. I hope you do. Okay, last three are 2-9er.
Whoever bought right before me.
6, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I got it.
There you go, $7.
All
And
right.
you get to go collect happy dollars.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, for all you folks who are happy, starting off with Chris.
Happy for making the trip to Disney World, the trip back, and the trip past COVID. Helping.
Oh,
To get out of my driveway, because yesterday I couldn't. Happy my snowblower has been working. Happy my driveway is icy, but I didn't fall down.
Carl.
We're looking forward to Christmas on Saturday. It's delayed because of COVID.
I'm giving $50 in honor of our 20th wedding anniversary.
Oh.
Those are from Mariana being here, and if Amber were here for wishing Amber a happy birthday.
Absolutely. And you didn't get a chance to say what you were saying.
I'm thrilled to be 20 years in with my wife.
Oh.
So hoping for 2024.
Anybody else? We have one online. Dave.
Dave, go ahead.
Got two happy dollars. First one's a shout out to Alan Unger. Last week I had to buy a new garbage disposal. And I don't have the capability to install it. And I asked him if he would. And he said he'd come over the next day, and he did. He did a great job on it. Saved me a bunch of money. The second one is I'm glad that the rain is washing away all this snow. We don't have to worry about hitting anybody. And that's it.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Dan, go ahead.
Dan.
Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
happy for the snow, so I've got $1 for that. And all this moisture is wonderful. We need it. Thanks.
Anybody else online? Anybody else here?
I've got a couple happy dollars. I've got two happy dollars, one for Dave Shirley. We rejected his resignation from the board. He was understanding enough to stick it out and work with us on that. So a very happy dollar for Dave. And my second happy dollar is for a future prosperous 2022.
Thank you very much.
Can I make one point?
Ed. Ken.
Just picked up my wife from the hospital. She was on Monday, and everything came out well. Just got her home, just in time to get here.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Happy we made 66 years.
Hey. Good job. Anybody else?
Mr. President.
Okay, well, that wraps up our starting business. You may have the floor. Paul, thank you.
So,
So we do need, Dave, can we give Paul access to sharing his screen?
I think I have it.
Already gave him
Okay.
access.
Perfect.
I think you froze, Josh.
All right. Presentation mode. Great, there's a little delay there. I do have to be able to access my computer here. Can you all see me with the owl standing over? Oh, here I am. Great, perfect. So, thank you. It's great to be here today. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself in a moment here, but I'm here to present to you. I spoke to you, I think it was 5 or 6 specific. For the region.
Kind of losing
Sir?
you.
Out of there. Can you hear me all right online?
Now you can.
I wonder if I should put my on here as long as.
Is that better? Nope, it's not.
Okay, well, I will speak loud.
You have 2 microphones on. Turn off one.
So I am the superintendent of the High Desert Education Service District. I was sharing with Earl that graduated from college back east, grew up in New Hampshire, and got a degree to teach high school social studies, followed a partner to Seattle and applied to close to 40 districts. And what I didn't know at the time is in order to be a social studies teacher, at least in the Seattle area, your first name has to be Coach, and mine was not. And so I didn't get a job there doing that, but what I did discover was I still wanted to teach, and I loved working with children with disabilities. So I got my master's degree in special education at the University of Washington, and specifically working with children with moderate to severe disabilities. And worked with high school students in the greater Seattle area, 16 to 21-year-olds, then moved to Juneau, taught kindergarten, and did that for a year till I got laid off. Moved to Anchorage and had an amazing job where I flew to a different village every week in Alaska that had children with disabilities. I'd come and coach and coach as it goes. That provide professional development, help the schools serving those children and communities as well. Did that for 4 years. Amazing job. And then I took a walk, wandered around the world for a year. Was in Tanzania of all places when a friend of mine who had invited me twice before to come ski at Mount Bachelor said there's a job for an autism specialist in Central Oregon. Can I put your name in? And long story short, when I landed back in the US, I had a job in Bend, Oregon. That was 23 years ago. And so was then hired by what was then called the Crook-Deschutes Education Service District. And I was an autism specialist for a couple of years. I started the assistive technology program, which is technology for children with disabilities. I also, well, someone joked at me, they ran out of jobs for me, so finally made me the superintendent, because I was special ed director, executive director, school improvements, deputy superintendent, and this is my 5th year as superintendent. And so that's a little bit about me. I want to tell you a little bit about, I don't know. Just want to advance. Try this. Move that out of the way again. It's about 3 seconds slower, but should move it to the bottom here, maybe 5 seconds slower. Maybe 10 seconds slower, but it's coming. So what is an education service district? 45 states have some incarnation, though they're called different things in different states. Oregon has 197 school districts and 19 ESDs. Washington also calls them ESDs. In California, they're called county school districts. In other states, they're called BOSIs, education service agencies. What we are is for those services that make sense due to economies of scale or due to a very limited number of expertise, it makes sense to regionalize. ESDs serve that purpose. And so, for example, I'm sure why that doesn't want to move over. I had mine anyway. I guess I'd have to do it here. Oh, yeah, there we go. So we can see that. So what ESDs do is, there we go, great. So what ESDs do is provide those services that make sense to regionalize. For example, Sister School District has one student who is blind. For them to find someone who is a teacher of the vision impaired, which is a requirement for them, that someone who has they have to hire someone full-time who is a teacher of the vision impaired, one-on-one with a kid, or try to find a 0.2 FTE of full-time equivalent of a teacher of the vision impaired, and where would they find that and who would they partner with? ESDs do that for them. So we hire 5 teachers of the vision impaired for 7 counties worth of school districts. And I'll explain why 7 counties when this seems to show we just serve 2 counties in just a moment here. So that's the basic concept. Things that make sense due to economies of scale to regionalize, that's what ESDs do. And so there are 19 of us. We are the High Desert Education Service District. Our name was changed about 15 years ago from Cook to Shoots. There is indeed a separate ESD up in Jefferson County. There are a bunch east of us. And then the largest one is Northwest Regional ESD, which is in the Northwest, hence its name, is actually 4 school districts and is including, 4 counties, including Washington County, and it has over 100,000 students that they serve in that region. We serve just under 30,000 students in our region, and we are publicly funded. We get money from the state and then turn around and serve our 4 basic school districts. So Crook and Deschutes County has Bend-La-Pine, Redmond, Sisters, and Crook County school districts. Those are our core districts that we serve. But in addition to that, for example, teachers of the vision impaired, the state said, we want to give money to an entity to provide teachers impaired to a larger region. We don't want 197 school districts figuring that out. We don't even need 19 ESDs to figure that out. We only need 8 regions in the state. Don't know who made that decision, why 8, how they set up the state, but the way they did split it up was our region for this service is called Regional Inclusive Services. It's High Desert ESD, Jefferson County, North Central, which is Sherman, Wheeler, and Gillum counties, and Harney ESD. So they said, who in that region wants to get this particular contract, state contract? High Desert ESD raised its hand the highest. And we now provide all the teachers of the vision impaired, teachers of the deaf, hard of hearing, autism specialists, teachers who support traumatic brain injury, and occupational physical therapists for those 7 counties. And that is another example of what ESDs do. So I'll come back to this in a moment. We are charged with providing at least these 4 areas. It's 3 bullets, but it's 4 areas. Programs for children with special needs, school improvement services, administrative services, and technology services. So by statute, we have to be willing and able to provide all of those things. Let me start with the story. This is Henry. Henry at age 2, 2.5, then 3, didn't say a word. Hadn't spoken at all and kind of grunted a little bit. And so his mom was getting a little worried. Usually by then we start to see at least babbling, if not full-blown sentences. And so Henry was taken to the early childhood special education evaluation team, which is a part of the High Desert ESD, and found out that he indeed had some speech issues and some language issues. So this is during COVID. Normally he would have gone in Redmond. He might have, and he does live in Redmond, might have gone to the Manzanita Center, which is one of the areas we provide early childhood special ed. It's kind of across the parkway from the hospital, kind of on the east side over there. If you were in Bend, the Alice Hatch Center is a place where we provide that as well. But this was during COVID, so you might see there's a little computer here. So he's actually at home. He was set up with a speech language pathologist. And within 1 year, he went from being in the first percentile to normal by providing that service. And so in Henry's case, before he even got to kindergarten, we were able to provide services for him to get him so he was ready for kindergarten. And that is about 1/3 of the students who we find eligible for early childhood special ed, we exit them before they get to kindergarten. They're ready to go. The other 2/3 could be children who are blind, deaf, have Down syndrome. They may always need special education services. Nothing wrong with that. But in the case of Henry, we took care of it, on we go. The second story, oops, that won't work. Second story is Children's Forest of Central Oregon. You may have heard of them. This is a nonprofit that was set up between the US Forest Service and education. And the notion behind it is to get more kids outside, whether it's literally rafting on the river nearby or helping teachers to be more comfortable teaching outside of their four walls. Could be taking kids up to Skyliners Lodge, where High Desert ESD has the lease to provide outdoor education, nature-based education up at Skyliners Lodge. Or it could be simply helping them to get outside of their four walls on their campus, on the school grounds, and think about how to have kids interact with nature. So K-12, Children's Forest of Central Oregon, I said it's a nonprofit, but it's under the High Desert ESD, and I'll talk a little bit about this. And we mentioned FAN, and I'll come back to FAN as well as being one of those organizations that that fits under the High Desert ESD, but also has its own foundation and 501c3 service as well. So this is an example of K-12, and then an example of a little bit older is the High School Equivalency Program, or HEP program. This is a federal grant that we received to help young adults and adults who speak primarily Spanish to get their GED. And so we work with COCC. COCC has a GED program primarily for people who speak English. You may not know that you can take the GED in Spanish and pass, and you have a GED. And so we got this federal grant to be able to provide instruction in Spanish and to help folks get their GED in Spanish and then be able to go on from there. Yeah.
Can you tell me right around this about that, how many people go through that program?
Yeah, so this is our third year with the grant. We got it the year COVID kicked in, and so not as fast as we had hoped. The feds would like us to have 35 folks a year in the program. We have graduated 8 in the first year, which was last year. It's a 2-year program. And so the feds are saying, we understand, we get this, but the goal is that we will have 40 in process at all times. That's the goal. Yep. So gave you that example of early childhood, K-12, older folks. Young adults and adults who are looking to benefit from education. We do all of those things. And so primarily we serve 4 school districts, as I mentioned. Dunlapine, Prineville, Redmond, and Sisters is under there somewhere. And but we also serve, as I said, due to those contracts or due to fee for service or due to federal grants, at least 1 district in 12 other counties east of the mountains. And so those could be, again, the contracts, or it could be fee for service, such as we have 4 attorneys who provide support for all the school districts, mostly bargaining with their unions. Our attorneys represent the school district, represent the board, as they are bargaining with labor. And so we provide that support for our 4 basic school districts. We get funding through the state to be able to provide that to them, but they also do it for Milton Freewater. They also do it for Malheur ESD. They also do it for Harney. They also do it, so all over fee for service, they might purchase that service because their ESD does not have attorneys to provide that service for them. So that's who we are and what we do. Let me dive in a little bit more detail in terms of what those services look like. The history of ESDs actually goes back to the founding of Oregon. So 1859, when we became a state, we actually got through the Civil War and then decided we need to set up education in the state. And what they came up with initially was county school districts. And that's actually where we come from originally. So way back when, county school districts were the main means of providing education throughout the state. Over the years, we morphed, and into the 50s and 60s, our name changed to intermediate school districts. And in the late 60s, early 70s, our name was changed to education service districts. And at that time, Public Law 94-142, which guaranteed an education for children with disabilities, came into effect across the United States. And most districts weren't ready for it. Before that time, a child with disabilities had no right to an education. If a school district could pull it off, good for them. If the state had set up a school for the deaf or a school for the blind for the state, good for them. If they didn't, they didn't. And in 1975, and I had a twin brother who was born with cerebral palsy and was blind. And he died when we were 4. He would have been 11 before he had a right to an education. So this is in our lifetime. This is an ancient history. What Oregon said is, ESDs, we need you to get school districts ready for this and to provide that support. And so initially we were doing almost all of special education until districts got up to speed and were able to do it. And we pretty much pulled back to just those areas where we need specialized instruction, such as teachers of vision impaired. So we do assistive technology, autism spectrum, deaf, hard of hearing, early childhood special ed, which is early intervention is 0 to 3, and early childhood special ed is 3 to 5. We provide all of that across 7 counties, as not just the evaluation, but the services as well. OT, PT, traumatic brain injury, and vision services. So those are services we provide. A district can do any of those. And in fact, Jefferson County School District has their own occupational therapist. Good for them. They don't have to provide or receive our services, but we have to be ready to provide it for them if they need and want it. Second area that we're required to provide is school improvement. There we go. So I talked about how the state is, if not the 19 ESDs, depending on the program, the state is divvied up in different ways, and there's no logic and no one talks to each other. So career technical ed is another example here, and we provide the regional support from Hood River County, Wasco County, Jefferson County, Crook Deschutes, Klamath, and Lake County. So we're a swath right down the middle of the state, completely different from what we do with special ed. And it just is part of our world. And career technical ed, my day that was called vocational education in high school, is everything from culinary to auto mechanics to business. Those areas of career and technical learning that ideally will lead to a career with perhaps just a certification, maybe a couple of years of community college. What we do, the high schools all have these. What we do is approve their programs of study. So if they want to have a culinary program, how many classes are they going to do? What are those classes going to cover? And does it lead to a certification? CNA, for example, away from culinary now, certified nursing assistant. A number of our school districts articulate with COCC. You do a couple of years in high school, 1 year in COCC, you have a CNA, and you can go work out there. ASE certification for a mechanic. That's also something else that we help provide. So we make sure that they aren't just one-off classes, they're actually a program of study that leads somewhere. And the other thing we do is often the teachers of those programs didn't go through traditional teacher prep programs. They were out in industry, they were in construction, they were in as mechanics, they were out there in culinary. What we do is help them get through the hoops, the paperwork, the difficulty of becoming a teacher. They don't have to go through the full program, but we have to walk beside them for the state to recognize them as teachers and in career technical ed. So that's an example of one way we support all our districts. Districts are doing the career technical ed, they're their kids. We provide the support, the infrastructure underneath to make sure that they can do that. All of our districts did driver education for years. What they said is, this is really taking us away from our core mission. Would someone else do this for us? And so high dose for driver education for all of our districts in the region. In some cases, it's during the school day. In some cases, it's after school, depending on the district. And we simply respond. A big part of our job is what works. What Ben Lapine does isn't always what Redmond does, which certainly isn't what Harnett County does. And so we're pretty full and provide what they need. Won't go through each of these, but we'll mention that migrant education, you may not know this, certainly know there are migrant workers who follow the crops as they need to be picked. And they might start in California and end up in the orchards in Washington State over the course of a year and back. You might not have thought about their children as they're doing that. And what we do, based on a federal grant, is find them while they happen to be in Central Oregon, link back to where they were before with their migrant ed program, let the next migrant ed program know that they're coming, and try to make it so they don't lose any school during that time. We provide after-school augmentative programs, but also just that linkage as they're moving along. Again, those are kids coming into our schools. Our school districts are working with them, teaching with them, maybe just for 2 months. We provide that link to make it so that they can take that child, support them for as long as they can, and then have the resources for the next school district to be able to support them as well. That's kind of a regional notion and one thing we provide. School response team, we also are the entity that if a student or a teacher dies and there is a tragedy, we will bring in, it's sometimes called a flight team. We'll bring in volunteers, often counselors from other districts, who will come in, create a safe space for that school. It doesn't have to be a death, but usually that's most common, sadly. And provide a safe space for teachers. We provide respite for them. If they start teaching and it's like, I can't do this anymore, we give them respite. We'll come in and take their class for a period of time. And we'll usually stay in for about a week. If they need us longer, we'll do that. So things like that might not occur to you, that help to make all of our system work, because life happens and reality happens. So those are examples of school improvement services we provide. For some of our smaller districts, we might provide business or HR services for them. We do it for them, and they don't have to worry about hiring those folks on their own, particularly for very small school districts. And I don't know if you know how small we get in Oregon. Ashwood School District in Jefferson County has 5 students in the entire school district. It's about an hour east of Madras. Black Butte School District in Jefferson County has 23 students. There are 2 of the 11 school districts in Harney County, 7 of them have less than 20 students in the entire district. ESDs pick up the slack with all that. That Ashwood School District has to send the same reports to the Oregon Department of Education as Portland Public School has to send. And someone's got to do those things. And ESDs often will pick that up if they buy our business and HR and related services. I mentioned legal services before. Anyone who wants to homeschool their student, their child, has to register with their ESD. That's in state law. And so we provide that as well. We provide all the substitutes, substitute teachers and classified folks in the region. And boy, has that been fun this year. We can't find them. And as you all know, and those frankly who are very good get a job in the schools because they need teachers and classified folks as well. So we were in October, on any given day, we had 21 unfilled teaching positions in our region, which meant principals were covering those classrooms for a day and then being a principal after that, once kids went home. And so Ben Lapine hasn't allowed any professional development that requires a substitute yet. They're allowing it starting today. What we did as a region is said, we actually have enough subs. The nature of a substitute teacher is, I don't want to work every day. It's a nice day out, I want to go to the mountain. I'll pick the day I want to work as a sub. That's part of it. So what we said is, starting in November, if you sub for 10 days, we'll give you a $500 bonus, and it's worked. So we're in November, December, we get down to just 2 unfilled days across the region from close to 20. And we're out again in January, and we'll see where it takes us. So that again is working with our districts and saying, here's our problem. How do we solve it together? And that's an example. And lastly, we provide technology services from desktop support to instructional technology. NOC, our Network Operations Center, all of our school districts, in order for internet to work, they don't want to be thinking about the blinky lights and are they linked to Ben broadband or that. That's what the ESD does for the entire region. And so we have specialists who take care of all that behind the scenes, and that as long as their computers work, we never hear from them. And I wouldn't say they're happy, but they're unhappy if it doesn't work. And so that's the nature of what we do as well. And the student information system for a number of our districts, anything to do with attendance, grades, all that information, we provide that support on the technology end for districts who want us to do that. Ben Lapine doesn't need, they take care of that on their own. Redmond, we do it for them. So it's different for different districts. I'm not paying attention to time. You're doing fine. Okay. I mentioned community-based organizations that I was great to hear about FAN just a little bit ago. There are 4 organizations that are under the ESD that also are 501c3 nonprofits. And I mentioned the Children's Forest. Better Together is our cradle to career community support entity that works with business and nonprofit and other governmental agencies to say, how do we make it so that we are all trying to get kids kindergarten ready, all trying to get them able to read by 3rd grade, all able to graduate? And so Better Together is our entity that does that. Children's Forest focuses on outside. FAN is our entity that supports, it's sort of doing the other homework. I think that's their motto for the long time, for kids who don't have food at home, parents can't afford the rent, can't afford paying the heating bill. FAN, every school in the region has at least a half-time FAN advocate who helps to make sure that those families get what they need and the children get what they need so that they can actually learn while they're at school. Make sure they have food, make sure they have those other things. So it's the other homework, what the kids need while they're at home. They have a board that is a foundation board out there to raise money. School districts, so the FAN advocate, this is a great example of how we all work together. So there's a foundation over here. The coordinator of FAN for the entire region and her secretary are employees of the High Desert ESD. All the FAN advocates in all the schools are employees of those school districts. And so we all work together with funding coming from what the foundation brings in, from what Medicaid brings in, from other resources to make this work. And it's a unique model and something we're really proud of Central Oregon to make sure that if anything happens, and I got to say during the recession 10 plus years ago, we went from serving about 700 kids to almost 1,400 kids. I'm sorry, 7,000 kids to 14,000 kids in 1 year through that. And those who were donating the year before were coming in saying, I need help. And that's what we do. So we work with FAN under us, and I4 Education is our innovation arm. That is working with the business and entrepreneurial community, helping education become more entrepreneurial and innovative. And so it is its own 501c3, but we work with a lot of businesses getting into classrooms, working with teachers who want to think differently about what innovation can look like in education. I'll stop there for a moment. I think well, this is actually my last slide. I'll stop after this one. So I purposely put our mission at the end, and that might seem funny to you, but I wanted to tell the stories so that you come to understand who we are. We are here to make sure students succeed. Our districts are excellent at doing that in the classroom, 20 to 30 kids at a time, specialized, whether it's math or science or social studies, et cetera, they're excellent at that. What we do is take care of, keep your eyes on the ball, school districts. We'll take care of these other things out here that also need to be taken care of so that you can serve those kids most effectively. And so we might provide that through excellence, a specialization such as a teacher of vision impaired or traumatic brain injury or autism specialist. Might come through efficiency. It just makes sense to regionalize. It just would be cheaper, economies of scale. And equity, both in terms of the conversation that's going on nationally, but also whether you go to Ashwood School District with 4 other students or Ben Lapine School District with 19,000 other students, ESDs are set up to try to make that as equitable as possible. And so you may not have access to driver's ed otherwise. Out in Ashwood, they do, once every 3 years. I have to come to Madras to get it, but still. So that notion of equity in trying to make it so that no matter what size school district, we help level the playing field. So that is who we are, and I think that is it. Yeah. So any questions?
When you mentioned you provide HR services for Ashwood, is that on a per student? Do you figure that cost on a per student basis, or is it a flat fee, or how do you come up with the cost for that?
It's different. So actually, Jefferson County ESD provides it for Ashwood. And kind of another piece here. So Jefferson County ESD has a superintendent as well. That superintendent is Shay Michelson, who was the superintendent of Denver Pine Schools and left 2 years ago, just before all this happened, and was hired by me to be our Chief Student Success Officer. And this last year, he was hired very part-time to also be the superintendent of Jefferson County ESD. So we work very closely together. So technically, it's Jefferson County ESD that provides that. I'll get to your question, I promise. But we work very closely, and it's our staff as well who help with that. Now, in terms of pricing, it really depends on what the service is, and what we try to do, and that's the notion of economies of scale, is say, okay, Ashwood, you're in, Redmond Proficiency Academy gets those services from us, Powell Butte Charter School gets those services from us, Sister School District gets those from us. Is that enough for a 1.0 FTE? If so, can we do it based on ADM, which is our way of thinking, which is average daily membership, number of kids. And in some cases that makes sense, in some cases it doesn't. Ashwood would pay $27 a year probably as compared to Sisters because it's so small. We also set up floors to say, no matter how big you are, you need to have someone who can make sure you have hiring protocols in place, can make sure, and so this is the floor cost of that service, no matter how big you are. And then we'll add on top of that if you have larger average daily membership, for example. That make sense? Yeah. Other question? Yeah.
Noticed in the paper a couple weeks ago that
Was it a good one?
somebody in Central Oregon, I guess it was over in the valley, actually, was trying to take the ESD there to court because they did not provide the services for special ed.
5 days.
And the reason being that the ESD had no specialists to provide it.
Yeah.
And so there was a problem between the legal system and the educational reality.
It was Lane ESD, that particular story. And what had happened, they could not find enough staff to, what is true in Lane that's not true here is Lane by their school districts to provide what's called their life skills classrooms. They're classrooms in their schools for children with more severe disabilities. They're learning more daily life skills, how to brush their teeth, how to take care of themselves, as opposed to more academic areas. And they did not have enough. And so what they did was went to 4 days in person and the 5th day virtual. No one else in that was getting 4 days in person and 5 in the 5th day virtual. We're not disabled, and 5 days in person. And the parents of the children with disabilities said, how is this fair? Everyone's right and everyone's wrong. That is to say, those children do have a right to what they would get if they were not disabled. And the reality is we aren't finding enough people to fill all the jobs we need to fill. And so this was a decision based on safety, and they are being sued. It did go to the Senate Education Committee, and a hearing happened about this, and we'll see where it goes. They're not the only entity. A number of school districts are in the same place. Around here, we're okay. We're kind of getting by, and it's bubble gum and baling twine. I mean, in some cases, we have folks with ridiculous caseloads. We have assistive technology specialists with caseloads of 120. And what that means is they're making phone calls. Anything, okay, I'll get that out, but that's it. That's the service. And that's not what anyone wants. We can't fill the positions. Yeah, that's real. Yeah.
You said you're serving 29,000 students.
Yeah.
How does that fit in the spectrum of other ESDs?
Yeah, we're about right in the middle. We are of the 19, we are the ESD right in the middle. So Northwest Regional, as I said, 150-ish thousand students. Wallowa is the smallest with about 1,000. Yeah, they're their own ESD and they're pretty small. Yeah.
Are children with mental health issues considered part of the ESD or
Yes.
service for ESD?
Great question. So just this year, We hired a regional director for mental and behavioral health. We had a number of services in place. I hope you realize that the list I gave you here was not exhaustive. Those were just examples. We provide suicide prevention. We provide Safe Schools Alliance. We provide student threat assessment if a child threatens a school. We provide training for that school, and then we convene what's called a level 2. If it's a credible threat, we pull together law enforcement, the school district, the district attorney's office, mental health, physical health if necessary. And what we've got there is an agreement that we will waive HIPAA and FERPA rights, and we will say, what's going on here? What do you know mental and behavioral health about the student? What does school know? What does law enforcement know? And how do we, and something I've learned from this, how do we make sure that kid doesn't turn into a monster? How do we save them? And so what we're often thinking about is once we're at that level, how do we get that kid out of there? The worst thing we can do. That as soon as they are out away from services, that's when we know they will do something bad. How do we make them safe and make everyone else safe? It could mean keeping them out of school and supported over here for a period of time. But we've been very successful with this model. That's an example of one of the services. So our regional director of mental and behavioral services oversees all those programs. FAN is under that as well. Make sure that we have more of what we need out there. I was going to say enough. We don't have enough, but more of what we need for kids and families. And especially during COVID, mental and behavioral health needs have just gone through the roof. It's been scary. Yeah.
Are you aware of the Kiwanis Mount Hood camp?
I am actually, yes.
And one of the things that, you know, from time to time, we set money aside to help those kids from Central Oregon.
Yeah.
Who would we contact to find out or let people in the community know that the service or this might even be available?
And the focus for Kiwanis is what types of
handicap?
Yeah, and is it a specific type or is it just any type of
Just
disability?
any.
That's what I was thinking. I wasn't sure because I know there are other organizations that, for example, just support deaf, hard of hearing, and I was thinking Kiwanis was more general. So our special ed directors are kind of our leaders in that area. We pull all of them together. I didn't bring this up as well. What ESDs do also is pull together the leaders of all our districts. So I bring the superintendents together once a month. My special ed director brings all the special ed directors. They are the ones who kind of get out to the parents and to their teachers, et cetera. Hey, do you know about this service? Do you know about Disability Network, Kiwanis, Mount Hood summer camp, things of that sort. So you get it to me and I can get it to them. Very easily done, but the special ed directors would be kind of our key folks in that area. We pull together all the curriculum directors, we pull together all the HR directors, all the business office folks every month, and just make sure we're all dealing with the same thing. And again, solving that issue like the substitutes, we're all in this together, folks. You want to pony up some more money to try to get people to work more. And it's frankly, we thought it was a wash because they weren't paying for subs for those 20 unfilled positions that they had budgeted for. So that's part of what we do is create a region. Charge serving their own districts. That's great. And they do that well. Our job is to say, and we're all in this together. How do we do this best together regionally? Is there a question out there?
Yes, you mentioned again substitute teachers. I missed something you said about if you teach, if you sub 10 days, we'll do so and so. I couldn't catch what that reward was to be.
This we just came up with in November. Starting in November, worked 10 days or more, you would get a $5 bonus for that month. Starting over again in December, so work 10 days in December, you get another $500, and we kept it going into January because it seems to be working.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How big's your team?
Good question. So it depends on how you count them. Our core I'll call them permanent employees is about 300 people. Most of those are early childhood special education. because we have all those classrooms set up out there. If you throw in substitutes, driver's ed instructors, and all our interpreters and translators, it's close to 1,500.
Wow.
And so we are larger than the Redmond School District. We're half the size of the Dunlop School District.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're spread out all over the place. Yeah.
Not a question, it's a comment. I have 2 kids that have gone through the driver's ed program. Thank you.
Well, thank you for getting them in there. Yeah, you know, that's an interesting one. Who we tend to get for instructors there are sometimes former teachers, but most of them are either former police officers or former UPS and FedEx drivers. And so professional drivers.
Great patience.
Great patience, exactly. And COVID has messed with that too, man. We kept it going, but you want to talk about close, you can't get 6 feet away from each other. And that has, our driver's ed program wrote the standards for the state. So we're, you know, I didn't put it up. Our vision is that we're going to be the best in everything we do in the state, and not so that we can go rah rah, but so that what we know is when you're seen as top in your area, other people are going to come to you and say, tell us more about that. And we know that teaching makes us more knowledgeable and better at what we do. So as we're teaching to other folks, and we're going to learn from them too, as they're asking us, well, we tried it this way. That hadn't occurred to us. We might try that as well. So we're very proud of all of our programs. FAN is an excellent example of that. We're a model in the state for how to support kids outside of the school day. So I could go on forever. I have a feeling we're close to it.
We are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, well, with that, I have a joke. And it was very serendipitous that you had said that you'd never been referred to as coach. All right. So the joke of the day, why did the coach go to the bank? Why did the coach go to the bank? To get his quarterback. Bad, I know. So with that, we are dismissed. If you'd like to stick around for the impromptu. Otherwise.
I got a board meeting.
Yeah.